period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is called to order. So I want to apologize. Go ahead.
Do we have any public members waiting?
Are there any public members on the phone?
Someone named meeting guest just showed up.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Catherine?
There's a new member that just showed up called meeting guest. I don't know if that's a public member or I don't know what that is.
And I'm not seeing that on my screen at all. Oh, and I need to start the recording this morning. We're doing a test. It looks like it's already started recording, so Nathan must have done that. So I don't have
if you
access.
could just, oh, okay. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll just do the recording then.
Yeah, it won't allow me, Nathan, to do it since you're already doing it.
That's the first part of the test then. That clarifies one thing.
Okay, great.
So Lindsay, if you look at your control bar and you hit the show participants, it lists everybody on the call, and the new person, it's called meeting guest. Looks like they are muted.
See, and I have the list. I have everyone, but I do not see meeting guest on my list.
I don't either. I see
It's
Holly
between...
meeting guest,
Weird.
Desi meeting guest, Catherine meeting guest.
Oh, okay. Well, it showed up after Nathan joined, so maybe it's you.
Nathan?
Well, it could be, but now you know who I am. So
it says you're muted. Oh no, the meeting guest is muted. So
yeah, that's Desi Lang is muted at this point. So I don't know if she needs to be or she wants to unmute.
Yeah, my dog has a squeaky toy in the background, so I'm trying to be kind to him as well as you.
The atmospheric music of the business meeting here.
Can I just make one more request? Greg, I don't know what is happening with your sound, but every few seconds it's like a wind tunnel coming from your name.
Oh.
I don't know if it would make more sense to mute until you're ready to talk. I'm not sure why that's happening. Yeah. Thank you.
He's meeting us on the wing of an airplane with a lanyard.
So I want to apologize for the late materials of this meeting. We've been really working hard with a lot of content, and then in addition to the other boards and programs we have, unfortunately, I was not able to get that information out to you until yesterday afternoon, but we will go through in detail the information that we need to, which was the questionnaire that you all responded to. So thank you for that. We will, so I'll just start with the first item is the agenda. Does anyone have any questions about the agenda?
I need to pull it up. I didn't have any at the time. I don't have any concerns now.
Okay. So the second item on the agenda is in regards to TXA. The board had wanted the health licensing office to create a specialized committee, which we did. And then also the board wanted an FAQ. And in regards to TXA, the health licensing office created the FAQ, and the specialized committee provided documentation, which was prescriptive. It went to the board, back to the board. The board wanted the health licensing office to dismantle the specialized committee. I have to get that email out to the committee. Desi, you are one of the members on that committee. So the board decided that the FAQ would be just basic information in regards to what TXA was, what training and education you needed in regards to actually using TXA and other general just licensing questions and basic information that was not prescriptive. The board also wanted the health licensing office to draft a letter to the OMC in regards to TXA now being added to rules. I am in the process of creating a draft for that. And that will go to the OMC. I should have that out by Monday. And TXA inclusion into the standardized competencies, which we have already done, and the written examination and the skills examination. So we have already worked on that. Those rules with the TXA go into effect as of May 1st. Of course, with the health licensing office, it always seems like we're up to the the 11th hour, but we have a lot of boards and programs that we work with. And so I guess it's just after 27 years, it's, nothing's changed. It's the nature of the game. So here we are doing the best we can moving forward. So that is where we are with the TXA update. Does anyone have any questions in regards to that?
I have one. This is Sholas. And Desi, you might be able to answer this because you were on the work group. I attended a postpartum hemorrhage roundtable last week that was sponsored by Andaluz Waterbird Center and had a lot of OMC members and other people present. And it became clear that several people are already using TXA because they have CNMs who are able to use it, and they have been using it. And it was hard to understand what they were saying, but they're using it instead of hooking it up to a normal saline IV like you're supposed to on a dedicated line. They're pushing it with a syringe, and I believe they're pushing it IV a little bit at a time, straight into the vein. And I just want to make sure that that is not something that the committee said was an okay thing to do, because that is against international and ACOG guidelines to do that. So do you remember the discussion about that at all, Des?
I actually haven't been a part of those meetings at all. So I know originally during one of our meetings here, I had volunteered to be on the committee, but I've never been a part of the meetings.
Wow.
So this is Cerinthia. I can answer that question. We never really had a meeting. So
Oh.
I think I sent out an email. I got some documentation back. It was prescriptive immediately at that point. I had to get with our policy analyst, and she needs to get some direction from the attorney. That's why we took it back to the board in regards to the prescriptive nature of the information that was provided to me and what HLO, based on previous attorney advice, had gotten. And so that's when the board had decided to move forward with a general FAQ in regards to what it was. If you wanted to administer it, you had to have training, and
So
it would be
in the rules, does it say, how in the rules it says Pitocin intramuscular injection, Pitocin IV? That's how the rules are. I'm trying to remember because I haven't looked at them in a while. Does TXA say very specifically per IV?
Well, let's pull up the rules and look, Holly.
I mean, since we're kind of on this, I hate to distract us from our other tasks, but May 1st is Monday, so.
No, that's fine. Let's pull them up.
The idea of people mainlining TXA and thinking they have enough control to mainline TXA is making me a little nervous. And I was not the only one at the meeting who was a little nervous. A couple of us were like exchanging scared glances.
Well, I see it here on 1.4.
Not on our competencies. I'm talking about the rules.
Oh, okay.
I am looking for the rules in our rule drive, and I do not see them posted there because they don't go into effect until
Monday. Well, that would
but-
explain why I didn't see it. I just saw the draft a long time ago.
Yeah, I've never even seen the draft, but yeah, I mean, TXA isn't in any copy of the formulary that I have.
Right.
See.
So I just want to make sure when this is in rule, that it is in there clearly that it is for IV administration only, and it's not under IV administration. It's very specific. It's not just IV, it's as a part of an intravenous solution, which is how everything we administer IV. Pitocine's that way, right? You're supposed to put, if you're going to do it IV, you put it in an IV bag, you dilute it. You don't just stick it in a vein. But that's what it's what it sounds like they were doing with this TXA, and that is a way to create problems potentially.
Yeah, I mean, on the formulary for Pitocin, it does say you can give 10 units as a bolus and 10 to 20 in a bag. Like so people are pushing Pitocin.
But it shouldn't be. It's as a IM as a bolus.
No, IV on the formulary.
Sticking the Pitocin into a vein straight on? That needs to be changed.
Through an IV, I'm not sure what you mean sticking it into a vein.
Well, there's administering something intravenously by putting it in a bag, right? As a bolus added to a bag. And then there's putting it into a vein with a needle and a syringe, like undiluted. And Pitocin should never be done that way. It should only ever be administered either IM or diluted in an IV bag. 1 to 2 units in ampules in a 1,000 liters. And so with TXA, I don't think you need to have it in fact, you don't have it in 1,000 milliliters, but you definitely dilute it in normal saline. And so I don't know exactly what they're doing because the people started to get a little defensive, but it should only be administered according to ACOG, WHO, and FIGO. It should only be administered diluted in normal saline.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure that whatever we have makes it really clear in the rules.
Yeah.
This is Corinthia, and Brandon is going to go get with Sammy Patton, the policy analyst, to find out where a copy of those rules that will be going into effect as of Monday are, or May 1st are. And so I'll have those for you in just a moment.
Okay. I don't want to sidetrack us, but given that you used the phrase May 1st, I started to have a bit of a anxiety.
No, that's fine. I totally understand. And absolutely, that's why it's on our agenda, so we can talk about it, because I know that it is something that we've been working on the qualification piece. So, and I know that at the last board meeting, there was a lot of discussion around the rules, but my understanding is it wasn't in regards to TXA. I believe that rule went, they voted on that rule, and it was a very smooth process. So if you could hold just a moment, Brandon is back and I'll find this information. Everyone?
Yeah, or at the end after we've done some other work, whatever. I just thank you, Corinthia. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Probably just being paranoid, but I was blown away. So I was like, okay. Given that there's not going to be in the FAQs any, I do remember you informing us of that a while back, Corinthia, that the board had decided not to get specific in the FAQs. That combination with May 1st being Monday, I appreciate you spending time on this.
Oh yeah, no worries at all. So we can go on to the next agenda item. Let me see if she said that yet. No, we'll just go ahead and move on. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to bring up the next item is the skills examination.
Can you embiggen that a little bit, Corinthia?
Yes. I knew that was coming.
You did.
Sorry.
It's like you met me.
Is that big enough?
It's definitely better.
I can go bigger if you would like.
Hey, Nathan, is there a way to take the bar, that's across the lower third of my page and move it somewhere else? Because it's right in the middle of what I want to see.
Let me take a look here. Hold on. Yeah, if you just click on the people button, oh no, that just takes it off the side.
Yep.
I'm looking right now. I'm sorry, I'm not more educated on this. It's okay, so here's an idea. Use pop, it says up the upper left, it says pop out content. It'll be a pop out, it says pop out content. If you click on that, it'll pop out.
I'm not seeing that.
Oh, okay.
Upper left.
Well, it's on the upper bar. It says take control, pop out, chat people. Maybe you don't have that.
I don't have that.
Corinthia, do you have pop out up there?
I'm looking. No, I just have chat people, raise, view, apps, more.
Let me try if anybody sees it when I do it. Is that anybody seeing that?
No.
Bigger?
No.
Okay. Give me a couple of minutes if you want to continue to
Do our work.
talk amongst yourselves.
Do the rest of
We'll
you
work
see
on
that
it.
bar across where I'm talking about? It's right across the words legend, drugs, and devices.
Yeah, I do too, Holly. I think Cynthia will just have to scroll up.
Okay. It takes up a lot of that and the bottom bar take up a lot of my screen. And then it's just like, okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so we, at the last meeting that we had, the committee actually looked at the skills examination. We talked about it. I formatted it into one document. It, for the administration, they'll have to print it out, single-sided, just a direction. There's a couple things that we still need in regards to the date. I have to enter the date. Well, the board will vote on it, which we'll talk about a little later in the schedule. I believe that date will be October 12th. But again, that date is dependent on when we get this done and what the next board meeting would be after we get it done. And so, and then also the administrative rule when after we are done with the competencies, the skills, and the written examination, it will go to the policy analyst who will then take it to the Rules Advisory Committee. And so that process will have to be completed, and then those rules will go back to the board, but we'll have to enter the rule number when the policy analyst gets that. And then also the date that this goes into effect. That at this point is fluid because we don't know based on when we are completed, when the RAC is completed, and when the board will vote on that. So the one thing that we do need to decide, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at today's meeting, we can do it, but is what the qualifications are for the individuals who will be providing the skills examination. And I believe it was my understanding at one of our first meetings, we talked about this. It'll be individuals from a MEC accredited or a pre-accredited educational institution or a preceptor through NARM. However, the caveat is if it is a preceptor through NARM, then the preceptor who is providing the training to the individual cannot be the same preceptor who provides the exam. That is what my recollection of our discussion was. And if you guys want to talk about that now, if you guys want to think about it, we can bring it up at another date. I'll let you decide.
We talked about talking about it last meeting to talk about it this meeting. I think for myself, this is Holly Schillis, the criteria that you just said is great. I would like to add some criteria to it though, some other options so that people who live rurally or people who are in other states or whatever have more options for somebody to administer the exam. So I think we should add CPM. And this is just me. Everybody else could have completely different ideas. Maybe CNM, the currently certified CNM. I think we should add probably paramedics, EMT paramedics, maybe even RNs. Like, I think we should open up that box a little wider, because these are skills, some of them, like suturing, not every one of those people has training. So we might want to be careful about that particular skill. And IVs are kind of that way too, but not everyone who's a CPM, or even, you know, not everyone has those skills that are in that category that we just said. So not every NARM preceptor is good at IVs or knows how to do IVs or is particularly good at suturing. So I'd also like there to be some kind of thought on our end given to those particular skills, and is there special criteria we want those people to meet. So while an RN might not have any experience with suturing, she's probably, or he's probably really good at IVs, better than the average preceptor even. So in the past, we talked about, by past I mean 20 years ago, when we were working on LD&D, we created individualized lists for each of the skills, who was the appropriate teacher or tester. So just tossing that out there for us. Given that we're not requiring any specific training, the role of the person administering the skills exams is really important. So I want it to be as flexible as possible and as available as possible, but make sure the instructor knows what they're doing.
So one of the things, oops, go ahead.
That's it.
So one of the things previously that I recall off of the previous Legend Drugs and Devices is that a licensed direct entry midwifery could provide the training if they had experience. Is that something you also still want to have as a consideration on this list?
What training?
For pharmacology or for IV administration, or if they were going to do it through the OMC, the person could be a licensed direct entry midwifery if they had the training themselves.
If they take an LD&D training?
Yes.
Yeah, that is, to be a licensed provider in Oregon, you have to have the LD&D training. So
yes, but then to teach someone else.
you just have
So
to be a licensed midwife.
yes. I
So
just,
that should definitely be on the list. I don't want to exclude
okay.
the LDMs from the list. Absolutely, that should be the first on the list.
Okay, well, I just,
So we want additional requirements. I mean, just because you're a licensed midwife doesn't mean that you have all of these skills sufficient to be assessing them. And I think that's just kind of common sense, you know.
but is there like a minimum time frame of, oops, I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
My concern is not necessarily for the individual's particular skill set or acumen in a particular discipline, but have they had any training at all in how to precept a station?
Right. How do you do the actual testing site? Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at too a little bit.
I can think of a lot of ways that, you know, something could be created to, you know, like an exam or a workbook or a, you know, something to guide people. But it also seems like, I don't know if there's the resources, you know, here to support that.
Well, we've made the test, if you recall, pretty step at a time. I mean, it was intended to, you know, here are the list of supplies you have to have, and here are each of the steps in the order that they need to be. So we made it as clear for whoever's precepting the exam for it to be clear what our expectations are and what they have to, what the student has to do in the order they need to do it in order to pass the test. That part, I think we've done the best that we can do on it with a fair amount of detail. I'm more concerned about, does this person have, I guess two concerns come up having done this a gazillion thousand times. One is I have to watch teachers in the past who help the students with their test. right? And drop hints or get in the way to help them, or say go lower, go higher, or whatever on the catheter or whatever. And that is something that can be taught to preceptors of exams. And then the other concern is that people are not sufficiently skilled in the skill themselves. And so if there is an issue that comes up, I mean, doing IV testing and training, of course, I've had people pass out and blood spurt and all kinds of things. And you need a preceptor of the exam who is calm and able to, you know, prevent disasters from happening and make sure that everybody's staying safe. And just any old CPM or any old friend of the midwife who's also a licensed midwife who decides to precept the exam, even with a really good clear checklist, isn't necessarily going to avoid the good-hearted cheating or the maintaining a safe environment criteria.
Yeah.
So that's part of why opening it up, on the one hand, to the different credentials of potential exam preceptors, at the same time making some kind of boundaries around what they have to bring to the table. And I'm not sure exactly how to do that. I think it is going to require additional conversation, but I just wanted to bring those concerns up because I've been thinking about it a lot, knowing that this is one of the little weak links in what we're putting together here.
So this is my proposal. What I would like to do is I would like to start creating the list based off the inclusion of the CPM and CNM and the paramedic, and then also work on some language in regards to what kind of skill sets that the minimum skill sets that you have, and then also, you know, maybe some additional language of you know, the safety and such. If we could work on some language that I could bring back to the full committee, and you know, prepare in advance, and that way everybody can have enough time to, you know, really look at that, provide comment. Our next meeting isn't scheduled out for a couple months, and then after that, I think we went 2 months out after that as well. So I've got a little time to work on that, and then I could get that back to the committee, and we can really go over it then in the future at another meeting,
That
if
sounds
that works
awesome.
for everyone.
That sounds great to me. Greg, do paramedics learn, and are they skills tested on suturing?
Yeah, well, no, some schools will teach suturing. Mine did here at OHSU, but it's not part of the national standard curriculum.
That's what I thought. Okay, that's good to know. And thinking about who is
Right.
qualified to teach, you know, to supervise what here.
Seems a little bit less likely that the suturing that is taught would be perineal.
Relevant. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's meatball surgery at best, mostly stapling.
Yeah, trauma surgery with staples.
I'm also just curious about the CPM thing. Like if, you know, if there's a CPM who wants to be a preceptor, but who like hasn't done an LD&D training because they're not an LDM, like, does it make sense to have people who haven't gone through this?
That can be one of our criteria. We can say CPM with blank, 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 blank.
Uh-huh.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Cynthia is going to work on. And Cynthia, I'm happy to help you with that, of course.
Uh-huh.
But
And
and
maybe
then-
this is, sorry.
Go ahead.
Maybe this is something that we already have that I'm just not aware of, but you know, the person that is doing the test is probably going to be the one submitting that test to the state. And maybe they'll have like a form that they need to fill out that just says, I attest that I, you know, have competency in these areas. And maybe it's not super official, and they certainly could fudge that, but just a little bit more like structure around what we're expecting them to have.
As opposed to having them have to provide proof somehow.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Or just making it a little bit more accessible, but also adding some guidelines around our expectations. So
this is a very rough draft. of the certification of examination form. And that language could definitely, Desi, be added in to a test of the competencies while for administering the certain sections of the examination. Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe even a couple of check boxes that, I'm, trained in these areas or have experience in these areas. I don't know. Just throwing out an idea.
Awesome. Is that sufficient to get you going, Cynthia?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then with the content that is included in the skills examination, if you guys want to take the next 2 months to really look at that and pick it apart and, anything we need to change or add, if you want to take the time to do that before our next meeting in June.
So it sounds like we've already gone through it once, but what you're asking for us to do is to give it a final look over before we send it to become rule, basically.
Yes.
And that seems like a very reasonable request, because sometimes the distance of time, you go back and you look and you're like, what did we do?
There's so many documents, right there. Can you say which ones you're wanting us to do that with?
The skills examination, it's just a one PDF document that was sent. And it is inclusive of all of the competencies for the IM injections, the IV therapy, and the suturing, and all the different parts. So there's 4 parts within the IM injections, and there's 2 parts in the IV therapy. So just go top to bottom and give it a fine-tooth comb.
And just email you with any notes we have.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this isn't the first time that we've seen this.
Yeah, I think I missed one meeting, and I did watch the YouTube video of the recorded meeting, and I had taken a couple notes, so I'll go through it. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. So with that, then we can move on
Cynthia,
to.
Do you want to give us a deadline for when to get these particular review notes to you, so that you have time to integrate them or create something we can look at the next meeting if we do need to review something?
Yeah, let me look at the schedule here in just a second.
I schedule my life around deadlines, because I'll guarantee you this is not going to be first on my list. I'm not going to work on it next week because I got other stuff already planned for next week.
I'm thinking June 1st. Will that work?
And our meeting is?
Well, potentially we have a date set out that I need to run by the committee.
June 22nd, right?
Yeah, June 22nd is the date of the proposed date. So June 1st. But since we're kind of doing dates here, is everyone available on June 22nd?
I have plans to be on vacation that day.
Okay, is there, let's look at our calendar here. Hang on just a second.
It would be easy for me to do the week before or after that, but if others can't, I can.
I'm okay on the 22nd, and I'm also okay on the 29th.
I believe.
Oops, go ahead.
I believe I'm okay on the 22nd. I have a suspicion that I agreed to something in that date range with my husband, but I can't remember what it was.
How about June 29th? Is everybody available June 29th?
How about you, Greg?
Just checking down, and 29 looks good.
29,
Yeah.
29, going?
Yep.
And there's time on your schedule, Cynthia, on the 29th?
Yes, I just looked at our calendar and I'm just going to double check that now that you said it, Holly.
This is not my first rodeo with the state.
I looked, it looked clear. Now I'm questioning myself now. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
But I know that it's happened before that calendars were empty, and then by the time we made the decision, they were full. Not our
Snagged it up
calendars,
in
the
minutes.
calendar, the OHLO calendar.
No, it is available. The 29th is available on the office calendar.
Great.
Snag it quick.
Thank you.
Okay, so we could actually go out to June 5th or 7th. June 7th would be fine.
I like having Fridays as deadlines. Am I the only one?
I don't care what day of the week a deadline is.
Okay. No, then I'm fine too. So
For you,
want
Holly, it's June 2nd.
Okay,
Current-
we'll make it June 2nd.
Are you laughing at me, Catherine Bailey?
I'm just confused. I think that's funny.
I've never heard of that, Holly, just so you know, and I've been doing this. a long
Really?
time. No.
Once again, I'm in a universe of my own.
So the next proposed date is August 24th.
Deadline to review.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
it-
free that day.
Greg? You're
Yes,
on-
that works for me.
Okay. And Catherine, yes?
It does work for me.
Perfect. Then we will schedule for August 24th.
And if we can get everything done by then you'll meet the October board meeting goal. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yes,
Looking
that
to
will
play
be
them
wonderful.
together.
In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up, since we are here and looking at this. I'll just move things around a little bit on this, our agenda. So this is the new schedule, and we will make that June 29th and then August 24th for the next one, starting those both at 10 a.m. The next board meeting is October 12th. Hopefully, everything will be done by our final August 24th meeting, and the board will be able to vote on that. And then again, going through the administrative rule process, and then getting that implementation date based on the rule process and the board final vote and such. So that is what the schedule looks like. And I don't believe that I sent you guys a schedule because I wanted to wait until we voted on these dates or talked about the dates.
You sent us one a gazillion years ago, like over 2 years ago.
Okay, back in January
Back in the
of
beginning,
21 when
yeah.
we started this process.
And let's just say that some of these dates, we had a plan to be done long before now. So
Yeah, we did. Unfortunately, we have, like I said, we have a lot of other boards and programs, and sometimes when the governor says electrolysis is taking precedence over direct entry midwifery at this point, I can only do
Yeah.
what my boss tells me to do. So
yeah, absolutely. No complaining at all. Just it is what it is. But
I
if we
know,
put them side by
sometimes-
side, we would be shocked at what we thought we could accomplish in that amount of time.
exactly, right? If we only had one board, wouldn't that be amazing? Oh my gosh, the work I could do for you guys, you would just. So I
We'd be
will.
so awesomer.
I will send this schedule to you by midweek of next week, and I'll wrap everything up that we talked about today, and anything I need to get to as well, I will by the midweek of next week. Okay, so with that, moving forward, we have a plan in regards to that exam, getting that information to you. So I am going to close this out, and we are going to move on the agenda to the written examination. I'm super excited about.
So while you're pulling that up, I'm going to let people know why my column looks weird. So I worked on this before she sent out the questionnaire, and I came up with my own system where I said a competency, if it was a 1, that it wouldn't have to be on everyone's test. If it was a 2, then it needed to be in the bank of questions that it could be drawn upon to be on the test. And if it was a 3, I didn't feel like it needed to be on the written test. So everybody else has yeses and nos, and I have numbers. At least last I looked at it.
Your 3 is a no.
Is a no. A 2 is a yes, put it in the question bank. And a 1 is a yes, put it on every single test. Because there were a few things I felt like everybody should be asked. So part of what we might have to do today is look at the yeses and see if there are anything that you guys think absolutely should be on the test, and you agree with me or you don't agree with me. You know, like with you, I'm sure there are very few hills on which I'm willing to die on this test. You know, I'm really open to negotiation, but some of the things I feel like are really important. And Cynthia, can you biggerize it again for those of us?
Yes, I can.
Thank
And I
you.
wanted to add to that what HLO did was we took the committee members' responses and we took what the majority vote was in regards to yes or no. We did not assign it a number because we needed to be here today to have the consensus of yes, to be able to ask what the committee decides if we want to ask the question or not, based on what the majority consensus was. And then again, also one of the things, and thank you, Holly, for doing that. It kind of opened up just a different way of thinking about it, because there's so many content areas. Like, for example, in 1.4 alone, what do we have, like 32 pages? I don't even know. Do we, you know, if it's a yes, is it a 1 or a 2? And if the committee as a whole decides it's a no, we can just move on and it won't be on that blueprint or on the examination. So again, thank you very much. But so we will be going line by line on this today to make that determination. And then as we go through, as an example, and I'm going to pull this up so you can look at this. We will be determining what out of the yeses and nos and the, well, not the no's, because once they're a no, they're not going to go on this blueprint map. But if they are yeses, and if it's a 1, it's a mandatory, which I gave you an example of. Can you all see that?
Yeah, it's got the weird codes that none of us know what they mean because they're top secret.
Yeah, well, those are item management for an examination system. So we have to manage this bank. So like, here's a prime example of that, Holly. If you go down to dosage guidelines, if you want, say there's 10 questions and 5 of those questions are mandatory, you would have 5 mandatory questions and you would have 5 asked on the examination. But the other 5 questions would be in a roll-in. Well, I have them backwards.
We get the
and
idea.
then-
Yeah.
And yeah, you get the, okay, very good. So,
Yeah.
and then you would determine how many out of those additional 5 you wanted rolled in and asked on that examination. So, and then the other option that we have, as we'll be going through, is when you have an entire section, if they're all roll-ins and not mandatories, do you want them to be rolled in as a content area, or do you want them to be rolled in as individuals? So we'll be determining that as we go today as well. Brandon, I don't know if you guys have met Brandon Chastain. He has is new to the agency and is helping me. Thank you. He will be doing the counts off to decide, and then we will be able to have a final as we end this meeting today in regards to what our examination will look like in regards to the total number of exam questions that will be asked on this examination. So, or at least an idea of moving forward, which we can all then look at and, you know, change up and decide. So
You said something to me the other day that was really helpful when we had a conversation, and it was that out of the bank, what I call the bank of questions, the rolling questions that are some of which not every exam will have those questions, but, and you said that you aim for about 50% of those questions making it onto any single test. So that was really helpful for me to conceptualize, like, you know, we'll have some questions that we feel like, for instance, I really think everybody needs to know what the correct dosage of Pitocin is to use for postpartum hemorrhage. That's an example of one I thought was a 1. So that'll definitely be on the test for everybody. But there might be a question on dosage of eye prophylaxis, say that I gave a 2. So that would be on about 50% of the test, roughly, depending on how big our bank is and how long we want the test to be. Is that, am I explaining that? Did I explain it to myself correctly?
yes, you did. And that is exactly what we're, the dosage guidelines, the example you gave, if 5 are mandatory, those 5 will be on that examination. And if you have 5 other questions that are 2s, which will roll in, you can either pick your bank as a 3 or you can pick your bank as a 2. 2 out of the 5 will roll in.
Okay, but we don't have to pick the numbers first. We can go through the content first, right? And see where we land.
We need to go through the content first. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
And
goodness.
yeah, and then like what you had said on that pharmacological movement, if your bank is 4 and you only want 2 on that exam, it'll cover the movement, the routes, the metabolism, and the routes of the excretion. So, you know, that's something we'll decide after we go through this, each section of this test today. All right.
All right, let's do it, because you said we'd be done at 1, and I'm feeling skeptical.
No, it'll be good. We'll get through it. We'll get through it, I promise. Okay, so
I still need this invigorized, Cerinthia.
Oh, here we go. Sorry about that.
I say it's because I have a small laptop, but I think it's because my eyes are old, but I don't actually acknowledge that. So.
Is that big enough?
Oh, that's great. That is so awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone stated yes on the define a drug. So the consensus was yes. And Holly, you had said as a roll-in, is everybody okay with first the consensus as being a yes and it being a roll-in?
Yes.
Okay. So we will do a 2 there. So define legend drugs and devices. It was a consensus a yes, and it was either a 1 or a 2. So do you want it as a roll-in or do you want it as a mandatory?
I kind of vote mandatory, but it seems like an easy one.
It's good to have an easy one on there that everyone can get right.
You would be amazed how many people don't get that right. How many people think that it requires prescriptive authority if it's legend drug and devices, and they forget about professional use?
Okay, so we will make that as a mandatory. So define the actions of pharmacological agents. The consensus was no, and so there would be no question asked on this exam. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. And so then we go into section 1.4, which are the competencies. So for the mechanisms of pharmacological action, for antihemorrhagic, for use by intramuscular injection, for synthetic, everyone said yes. Well, the consensus was yes.
Except me, I said no. So what do we mean by mechanism? So that was my concern, is that it's going to get into the weeds, and that I'm not sure that people need to understand in detail the mechanism. If what we mean is affect smooth muscle or is a vasodilator, that's one thing. But if you're getting into a chemical mechanism like they do a lot in pharmacology texts, I don't think it's reasonable to expect people to know that. So I was curious what other people were thinking mechanism meant.
I agree with that, Holly, but I think like this list of these meds just goes on and on and on and on with all the different like competencies. And I feel like out of all of them, the action is in some ways the most important, like knowing that oxytocin causes a contraction, you know, like just
Right, but this is about the mechanism of the action, not the action.
I had some questions about that in particular, but I didn't, because this one was the very first on the list. I was like, oh, yes, we need this. But then as we got down with the other descriptors of what like Pitocin or other drugs are, then I was a little bit more confused of like what exactly a mechanism of action versus action would be.
Yeah. So one solution might be to get rid of the word mechanism and just say, explain the pharmacological action of. Greg, what are your thoughts?
That's good. No, that I think that's right on the money. It really gets it out of the weeds without having to discuss mechanism.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, in a perfect world, we would all know it, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm much more concerned that they know how much to give, how to give it, and what it's going to do, rather than how it does the thing that it's going to do. So if we does that make sense? Well, in that case, my
like
threes
basic,
then become
basic question about, you know, what does this drug do?
Yeah. So in that case, I become either a 1 or a 2, and we can go through them one at a time and decide what we think. I mean, we do already say it's an anti-hemorrhagic for use as, so.
Okay, so Catherine, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I just was saying that I agreed to get rid of mechanism, and that it would be great to just have some basic questions just about, you know, what these drugs do. I mean, we say that on the competency list, Holly, but we're talking about exam questions, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and we also, there's a difference between saying smooth muscle relaxant and anti-hemorrhagic, right? So we could be that detailed easily, I think.
Okay, so everybody's good with removing mechanism, and then the answer is yes, and a 2 as a roll-in or a 1 as a mandatory.
I'd lean towards 1, but I am kind of undecided.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
We're at a 1.
See how many ones we end up with at the end.
I know. How many questions do we want on this test? Is another
200 at the most.
5 million. Yeah.
It only takes them 3 days to take this multiple choice test.
Cynthia, can you do like a 1 question mark and you get to decide later?
So I can, okay.
1/2. It would be fine if this was a 2 if we have too many questions. Yeah.
Okay, 1/2. Okay, so Methergen.
Same, I'd say 1/2.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, for ergonovine.
I think no is the right answer, because this isn't something we can get in this country at this time. It's considered pretty controlled, actually, because it is a precursor for LSD. You can use it. So it's pretty, I think it's good that it's on our formulary, just because that could change, or they could come up with a different form of it or something, but I don't think it needs to be on.
Okay, so for synthetic oxytocin, I apologize if I pronounce any of these incorrectly.
We're going to judge you really harshly, Cynthia, really harshly.
So the answer was yes. Do you want it a 1 or a 2, a 1-2 as well?
Yes.
Same.
Okay. TXA?
I'm wondering if, because TXA is new to a lot of people, if maybe we should make that one mandatory.
Plus it can kill you really fast if you do it wrong.
Okay, we'll make that a yes and a mandatory. And then for anti-hemorrhagic for oral administration for Methergen. 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah.
I do lean towards 2 because it's really hard to give somebody enough of this orally. I mean, there'd be a lot of Methergen, but
Yeah, I would say 2. I mean, well, and honestly, like, I don't really, the action doesn't change whether something is
Right.
in a different route. So like, I don't think there needs to be a separate question for Pitocin IV or Methergen oral if we're already going to have one that's about IM. Like,
yeah.
this question is related to the route of administration.
That's reasonable.
And
Okay,
I
so-
confess, I didn't even know Methergen could be given orally. I've only ever seen it given
Super
intramuscularly.
expensive. I
It's a
don't know
little
anybody
white pill,
using it.
not too little. It's a white pill as opposed to a capsule. Little round
Okay,
thing.
so everybody's good with a 2 on that?
Sure. If we even need it, if we covered it above, we'll figure that out.
Okay, the Cytotec,
It only comes for oral or rectal administration, so at least a 2.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah.
okay. For rectal administration, the Cytotec,
2.
Same, 2.
everybody good? Okay. For the intravenous fluid replacement for resuscitation, the lactated ringer solution,
I think all of these, because they're fluid replacement, the action is it expands volume. So I gave them all 3s, as we don't need to ask a question about what is the action of it.
I agree.
Yes.
I was kind of unsure. I want people to know this information. I'm not sure where else it's going to be covered or tested, but doesn't need to be tested. I'm not sure that I have a strong opinion.
I don't want to have too many giveaway questions, given that we have a limited number of questions. And the answer to, in my mind, is plasma expansion, fluid expansion, and as a carrier for the drug. So that seems so non-essential as opposed to, say, TXA.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
ooh. So I think we're 3s there. We're no's on that one.
we're good at no question. Everybody good at no question?
And that whole 1.4.5.
Okay. Going on to resuscitation with medical oxygen, everybody said the consensus no.
It gives them oxygen.
Okay. Epinephrine for anaphylactic treatment by subcutaneous.
I think that's a 1, given that we've changed it from mechanism to action.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Going on to antihemorrhagic for use by intramuscular injection for each. The local for the lidocaine.
So I'm confused about this. If it's anti-hemorrhagic,
Right.
lidocaine is a anesthetic.
Yeah,
So-
why did that good catch.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not that anti-hemorrhagic word at the top of that. None of those are anti-hemorrhagics. This is an example of where we missed something. It should just say for use by intramuscular injection. Get rid of the anti-hemorrhagic, because none of those are anti-hemorrhagics. Good catch, you guys.
So I'm sorry, get rid of for do what?
That's like a
Just get rid of
title
those.
that's continued from above, but it isn't accurate to the rest of this list. I don't know where that came from.
So
Yeah, right.
epinephrine
So it
is
should
also
just
not-
be maybe medications for use by intramuscular injection.
except that
But it shouldn't be, I don't know if we do continued because it's not anti-hemorrhagic.
well, we need to go back above because epinephrine is also not an anti-hemorrhagic.
Yeah, go back up to see what it's. Something just got messed up with the order.
Keep going up, keep going up. All right, where we move from, we got the anti-hemorrhagics,
114A is just explain the
pharmacological action of.
So we just need to delete,
Oh,
we just need to copy, explain the pharmacological action and replace that on the next page.
okay. And Brandon's coming in. He has an explanation.
So it was my fault. It was supposed to say explain the mechanism for the pharmaceutical action continued. I put the wrong one. So
Oh,
that's what it's supposed to say.
So
We're
this
totally
should
gonna
be,
Yeah. So it should match 1.4A.
oops.
there you go.
That's what it should say. Sorry.
Well, my form isn't working, so,
It worked for a minute and then it went away. Your cut and paste worked and then it didn't work.
yeah, no, it's. I don't know what's happening, so we'll just,
Highlight
there we
it.
go.
Yay!
Okay,
Awesome.
very good, very good.
Okay,
yeah,
thank
my-
you.
I don't
Wow,
know
that was
why
a
it
big
was-
catch. That could have been very confusing.
Okay. So I'm gonna hit save. Hang on just a second because my cursor's being a little odd here. Okay, good to go. So for local anesthetic, for lidocaine. A
I mean,
three,
No, because it's a local anesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, I would say no. I think just dosage is important, not necessarily saying what does lidocaine do, right? Like,
okay, so for procaine,
Same.
Definitely no. And in case you're
Four.
wondering why sterile water is listed under local anesthetics, because I was on the board when we did this, it's so that we could add it into our formulary in a way that did not require us to go back to the legislature. And so it's locally anesthetizing the back area. Just in case you wondered, when did water become a local anesthetic? It's for those, the 4 little subdural injections.
so
I
for
said
ster-
no, but I don't have a strong opinion.
everybody good with no question on that?
I'm good.
Okay, so for rhesus sensitivity prophylaxis for ROD, a 2,
Yes.
a 1.
I mean, what
One.
answer are we looking for here? We're looking for it to say that it prevents sensitization of RH negative babies born to RH positive mothers thank God we don't have to explain the mechanism because I'm not even sure we're 100% sure how it works. Is that the kind of thing we're looking for here to prevent RH sensitization, something like that? That's the action, right?
Yeah, I would say it too.
2.
I'd say 2.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the Dermabond, no?
No.
1.
Okay, for the intravenous antibiotic for group B for penicillin, a 2 or a 1?
I mean, the action is just that it's an antibiotic, right? Like,
Yeah. That's why I gave him 3s. It's like penicillin. What does it do? It kills microorganisms.
No question?
Yeah, I don't think it warrants questions.
like
Not in this section. In other sections, it does.
Okay, ampicillin, same thing,
Yeah, all the way down.
all the way down. Okay, for eye prophylaxis for erythromycin,
In this case, maybe it's a 2 instead of a 3, that it prevents, the eye infection in the newborn.
okay, everybody good with that? Okay, so hemorrhagic disease of newborn, mephitin,
Mephitin.
mephitin, okay,
2.
I would say 2.
okay,
Yeah.
And the phytonadione one is a 2.
I'm sorry, for phytodyne,
Phytonadione is a 2, I think.
2, everybody good
We
with
have
the
2
2?
yeses and then,
Okay,
But like, that could also be one question about both of those two.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
That'd be a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave that as a 2. No question on medical oxygen.
Yeah.
Okay. Going down to the onset of action for each. So
And
for, go ahead.
to me, these are 2s that they'll be in the bank, and about 50% of the people will be asked some combination of these, you know. But to make it a 1 for the onset of action, which is pretty tight windows, you know, the difference between 3 to 5 and 2 to 5 and 3 to 10, and all the different combinations of answers, it'd be easy to miss it if we aren't careful about it. So to me, it was a 2, but I'm open. Except for ergonovine is a 3 probably, because we're not basically going to ask about it. That's my
Well, and
take.
how is onset action different from the previous, which is just action?
I think it's supposed to be onset of action.
Onset of action, so like an IM injection, starts working in 2 minutes or however long. Like it's a very specific
IV
question.
versus
All of these
rectal
drugs.
versus.
Yeah.
I think I think what's more interesting about this for this whole section to me is like a question that's about methogen that says, is the onset of action faster for IM or oral administration, or like something that's more about the differences between the different routes more than needing to know the exact numbers for each drug.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you say that again, Catherine?
Yeah, I guess for me, it seems like instead of needing to know the exact time that each drug will start working, it's more interesting for me to have some questions that are about like, for each drug that has more than one route of administration, what's the difference in the onset of action between IM versus oral or oral versus rectal?
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, other than, go ahead.
I just was gonna say, I do agree with 2s for all of these except for a 3 for Ergotrade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for the antihemorrhagics by intravenous for synthetic oxytocin, 2.
2.
TXA, 1 or 2.
2. This is onset of action, so 2 for me.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. For the oral, for the methogen.
Well, this is getting at what Catherine just said, so we'll just give it a 2, and maybe we can create a combo question,
Okay, so Cytotec, 2 as well.
Yeah.
Okay, for rectal administration, same thing, 2.
Yeah.
Okay, for
And I gave all of these 2s, but now I'm thinking more like no.
Right. I mean, it starts working right away with.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say all 5 of those are no's. 4 of those are no's.
Okay,
Me.
everybody good with
Looks
that?
like
Yep.
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, and Sam, what about the medical oxygen?
Onset of action is a no. It's immediate. You breathe in the oxygen, you get oxygen.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Yep.
And the epinephrine?
2.
Yeah.
Good, okay.
So add the of action there between onset action. Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay. Lidocaine?
All of those I think should be 2s myself.
Everybody good with that?
Some
Yes.
people are saying no. We have a couple ties. I'm assuming the Procaine was a no because we don't use it very often.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my thinking. And same with the sterile water papules. It's not something that everybody uses. It's, it's in our formulary, but it's not a regulated substance. It's not, and it probably works differently. The onset, of action is probably going to be different for each person, whether or not it even works at all. So it just felt like a complicated question.
So no.
We are
question-
allowing them to use them and access them and administer them. And because, sometimes things like ergotrate where you just can't get it is one thing, but this is something people can and do. So that's my logic for making it a 2. But if people think it's unimportant enough to make it a 3 in the world of all these questions, we could put a question mark to it.
Specifically in this subject of the onset of action, I'm just not sure how beneficial that question is for sterile water papules.
Good point.
So,
Okay,
so
3
for
maybe?
sterile water, no question.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
And then I think we're still, what are we gonna do for Procaine?
Leave it a 2.
Catherine, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, it's fine. I don't think it's necessary to have a question about program, but 2 is fine.
Okay, I'm easy. Again, not a hill I want to fight on.
Okay,
Kyle.
so we're gonna leave it as a 2, is that the consensus?
Yes.
Okay, so for Rodi,
And this is the onset of action.
Yeah, I would say 3. It's a no.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not
okay.
that kind of drug.
Dermot Bond, no.
No. But let me tell you, it works fast because people get their gloves stuck to people's perineums all the time.
It's never happened to me.
Yeah, well, how many times are you dermabonding a perineum?
Oops. Can
More
you hold
often than I might think. I don't know.
I'm gonna put you on hold for just a second. Something happened with our phone. For the penicillin, ampicillin, and the other 2, what's your thoughts? A 2?
Onset of action, I would actually, as I think about it, say 3. But I could go with 2s as well. Because when I think about it, what is the onset of action for a penicillin for GBS? I'm not sure even the CDC says what that is. They say try to get it in for at least an hour before the birth of the baby.
Right.
You
I
know,
mean, I
every
think,
4 hours.
somewhat starts working right away, but I think the
Somewhat.
it's more
Yeah.
interesting. It's not the onset of action, but like when does it become most effective?
Right. And
Okay, so no question on those. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. For the eye prophylaxis,
same thing.
Same.
no
Don't know.
question. Methadone, I know I messed that up.
You're all right. You're good with fighting.
Mephitin, thank you. 2?
Again, as I'm thinking about it with the group, I'm leaning towards no. No.
Okay.
On all the rest of the page.
Okay, so, the Fido, I'm just gonna call that Fido.
Yeah, I would
You
say
call
no.
it Fido.
Those other 2.
So for Fido and medical oxygen, no. Okay, I'm gonna hit save here. Now we are on to the peak effect.
So when is it working the strongest, the best?
So,
Specific for an exam this big.
so no question on those 3. And then for synthetic,
I just
no.
said this whole section.
I said no on this whole section too.
Is everybody good with that? What about the
I agree.
TXA?
Even with TXA, I have other concerns that I want to be
I mean,
tested.
I think we're thinking about TXA because it's new for us, but for someone who's taking this exam, everything will be new. It's not special.
Yeah.
Well, in many cases, but not in all. We'll have people taking this who are licensed in other states and
Okay. You're right.
So we're still good with no questions in this section.
yeah.
Okay, so moving on.
Well, that section, so a few more no's to get through.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to continue on with this page. Everybody's good with that? On the ROD,
Yeah.
the Dermabond, yes. And then same thing with the penicillins.
I mean, this might be a good question to have about penicillin, like when is, I don't know if peak effect is the exact right word, but like,
When it's therapeutic.
yeah, to have a question about when penicillin for GBS prophylaxis is the most therapeutic, like after how long? I don't know.
Well, the
So,
problem with that is they want to be the most therapeutic, it's 2 doses 4 hours apart.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay,
so we'll give that one a 2.
I don't know
Yeah.
how, like, who's gonna, are we writing these questions? Who's gonna write these questions? Like, will someone
I'm
know?
writing them with Cerinthia.
Okay,
And anybody else who wants to,
okay.
but everybody's going to see them well ahead of time and review them and make suggestions. But
Okay.
Catherine's like, better you than me.
Well, no, I mean, I just didn't know if, yeah, if someone who understands what this means is going to be on that group. I mean, I'm happy to help if needed, but yeah.
Well, these suggestions are super helpful, though.
And I
Because-
personally would say 3 for the other 3 because they're used less often.
Yeah, and 2 for penicillin.
I would.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, Catherine, I write words on paper from books and then get the subject matter experts and the experts in the field to weigh in whether I wrote it correctly and whether it makes sense. And, I have the
Yeah.
correct answer. Yeah.
The format
You
that
do
this,
not,
the format
you
that
don't
this
have-
uses is not very good at crossing the different number boundaries, which is a lot of what you're suggesting. So we'll have to, so it would not do that automatically without our suggestions. So it's good that you're suggesting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Desi, what did you say?
oh, I was just going to say, Cerinthia, that you do not have an easy job. I don't think I could do that. So,
Thank you. No, I try.
She may feel the same way about what you do, though.
Yeah, right. Okay, so eye prophylaxis, no question on that.
Correct?
And then the method, I can't even remember what you said. I'm sorry, method.
A no and a no. It looks like the consensus was no, so.
Okay. And the medical oxygen, a no. Okay, now we're going down to the therapeutic effects for.
So how is this different than the actions?
Yeah.
One is what it does and one is how it does it.
Yeah, which is the mechanisms of the effect versus the therapeutic effect is what it results with in the body, which is what we really care about, which is why I gave the first section all 3s, because the mechanism of the action. Here is, I think, what you were wanting to get, you guys, from effects.
Well, I think like I guess my understanding would be like the action of Pitocin is that it's an oxytocic, and the therapeutic effect is that it's an anti-hemorrhagic.
Right, which is built into the category. So anyway,
So 2s on all of these? Everybody good with that?
or 1s on some of them.
Or 1s? What would you like for?
I think I gave at least all the anti-hemorrhagics 2s. Like put it in the bank, half the people will be asked some combination of these, but if there's some in particular, like TXA wasn't on the list to rate, and so maybe we want to say that's a 1, or PIT is a 1, or what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the ones that are used the most often, so like Pitocin, TXA.
TXA is new and scary, so that's why it's a 1. I don't know that it's going to be used very often, but
So one on TXA, one on Pitocin. That's what I heard you say, Catherine. And then the ergotrates 2s.
Ergotrate is a 3.
Oh, that's a no on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
then-
Methergena 2.
I'm sorry, what?
Methergena 2.
And then there's your Pitocin.
And that's a 2 as
That's
well?
a 1.
Oh, that was a 1. Okay. Sorry. Oh, for either or the intra
Yeah, you
versus.
don't need 2 questions
Right.
that are mandatory.
Okay. So Methergen,
2.
2.
Cytotec, 2 on both.
Yeah. And again, when we make the test, we don't need them on there separately.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just,
Although if we do that, people start second guessing themselves and go, maybe they're different. I don't
Yeah.
know.
if we really want to trick people. Yeah, the setup of this is confusing to me with this because it seems like instead of having all these headings, this should just be a list of the meds each time, not a list of them by route.
Well,
Yeah.
we did it like because of all of the different competencies for each of those. Like as we're going through, we needed to know which on these competencies for each of these questions. It wasn't,
This
Yeah.
is how it's set up in the rules, Catherine. Basically, that's
I-
why they did it this way.
Okay, so for lactated ringer and through the D5W, are these all 2s as well?
I could see them being 3s because we're
Right.
talking about therapeutic effect, but they could be 2s. I mean, one question on IV fluid replacement as opposed to each of the separate ones could have a therapeutic effect. So what I'm inclined to do is put a 2 next to the line that says resuscitation IV fluid replacement, and then put little dashes on the other 4. So that we make it clear that we don't necessarily need a question on each of those. We just maybe want to include a general question there, just for us to remember.
Everybody
That
good with
makes sense?
that?
Good.
And then a no question on the,
Although, she says, second guessing herself, all of the dextrose-based ones do have a slightly different effect than just a straight fluid replacement. But
I think that's true, but so I don't.
you're kind of cutting out, Catherine. I didn't hear what you said.
I just said that's true, but I think they may not be used very often, so maybe it's not necessary to have a question.
okay,
So we'll just do one question on the basics for the resuscitation for,
fluid resuscitation, yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so medical oxygen,
Therapeutic effect,
I would say 2.
No question.
okay. Epinephrine,
that's a scarier drug. I'm either a 1 or a 2 on that personally. I said a 2 because I was trying to keep the test short, but I mean the required parts of the test short. But so I could go either way. What do you guys think? Because you're all yeses, so 1 or 2.
I think it's a 1.
good with that, Catherine?
Sure.
Okay,
Desi's on the phone, so
okay. Nod your head, Desi.
she's not listening. She's on the phone.
Please
Clients take all of your attention. You don't get any extra attention for anything else, not even going to the bathroom. So
Yeah, I
effect of,
figured she couldn't hear me, so I was just, okay, so for these 2s, or everybody good with 2s?
Catherine?
Sure.
We're having number fatigue.
Greg?
Water papules, does that have to stay to 2? Can that be a 3?
I think that could be a 3.
You good with that, Catherine?
Yeah.
Desi,
Again,
you good with?
immune globulin, 2.
Sure.
Okay. Dermabond, I would give a 3. Yeah. IV therapeutic effect. Again, this might be a combo meal. Put up maybe a 2 for the, and then put little dashes. How's that sound to people?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I prophylaxis 2, I think.
Mhm.
And then the vitamin K 2s.
For both of
Okay.
those. Right? And then
Yeah. And then medical oxygen, either a 2 or a 3.
Oh,
Any votes on that one? Excuse me. Gosh.
we already have oxygen.
3.
3.
Yeah. 3.
okay.
3.
Okay, now we're going
Just
to
read
the
oxygen.
duration of action.
That's more important to me than some of the other stuff, like how long is this Pitocin going to last? And it works both ways, because some people apparently think it lasts 10 minutes and they give it again in 10 or 15 minutes. And then some people think other things are going to last, longer than they do. And of course, there are individual variations, like Desi alluded to earlier on something else. So that's why. And the half-life, that I don't think we need to ask at all. And asking to explain the duration of action is different than what is the duration of action. So that's part of why I gave all of these 3s. It just depends on what we want to ask here.
Should we recraft the question? Because I think it's terribly important that they know the duration of Pitocin.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what is the duration of action?
What is the
Okay.
duration of action, and get rid of the half-life for each legend drug.
Okay, I gotta put you on hold just for a second. If you could please.
What is the
What
duration
is
of action?
the duration of action for each legend drug? And so instead of explain, what is?
And you wanted to take off half-life?
Yes,
Okay,
because that's a whole different thing that nobody knows off the top of their head, I don't think. Maybe for 1 or 2 drugs, but. So now it becomes more important.
okay. And so now there'll be 2s or 1s.
Yes. So what do people think for oxytocin?
1 for oxytocin.
I think, 1 for oxytocin and methergin. I don't, probably no for, ergotrate.
Yeah. Did you catch that, Cynthia? Yeah. No
Oh,
question.
no on ergotrate? No?
Because it's the one that right now we can't actually get.
Oh, okay.
So
Everybody
we
good
don't
with
want to
that?
take it out of
1,
the
1?
rules. We still want it in the rules.
Okay. For for intravenous,
Both of those would be 1s.
1.
And again, we'll figure out, because they do have different durations that way. The mode of administration does impact it.
okay. When I
1 or
look
2
this way, you guys, I'm looking at your faces, just so you know.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
That's what
ignoring it.
Get all your, head shakes and nods and, see if I can. Okay, so, methergin,
For oral methergin, 1.
I mean, really I just feel confused about how many questions we're trying to put on this exam. Like, do we really want 10 mandatory questions about duration of action for each of these drugs and routes?
Well, I think we want to combine, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. there would be 7 duration. I don't think the rest of them we really need
Okay.
them for. To me, this is the section, this first whole section with the individual drugs that I had the vast majority of my ones. I have like just a couple or 3 later in the rest of the document. Almost the rest of it is 2s. But
I think miso should be a 1, but it could maybe be a combined.
Except they
doesn't-
have different onset, they have different duration of effect.
Okay. Yeah.
So what would you like it to be?
They're saying 1 for cytotech oral and 1 for cytotech rectal.
Yeah, because duration of effect, I think, is important for these anti-hemorrhagic drugs.
Yeah.
Okay,
This, I
3.
think, is, 3s.
Yeah.
And we all kind of mostly agreed on that.
okay.
3. My phone is blowing up with people trying to call me, which never happens. Epinephrine, I think, is important because it's a really even though I gave it a 3 because I gave everything a 3 in that section originally because of the half-life thing. Epinephrine is important to know how long it lasts. And part of why it's important is people think if they give it in or symptoms improve, that then they're done, and they are so not done. So I think
a
it's a
1.
2 and maybe a 1. Thoughts?
I don't have a strong feeling on it.
That's a good take on it. People need to understand that you can't just give it once. You need to continually be vigilant for symptoms changing.
What we tell them is that they should transport at that point.
Mm.
If we give epi at home, they need to be in the hospital.
So you're, Greg, leaning towards a 1, did I hear you say,
Yes.
Greg?
Absolutely.
Catherine, Desi, you okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I would give lidocaine a 2 and the other procaine a 1 and sterile water 2. I'd be okay with that being a no as well.
Yeah.
Asking how long it's going to last is something that they should know, that it lasts, 1 to 3 hours or something like that.
5 protein, a 1.
I'm sorry, what, Catherine?
Procaine was supposed to be a 3.
Okay.
Oh, a 3?
Yeah, it's a no. Mostly because we almost never use them, and so.
Oops. So a 2 on lidocaine, a no question. Oops, it's no question. On the procaine and the sterile water papules, a 2. Is that everybody good?
And I'm okay with no on the sterile water papules too. If people think that's not worth asking, putting in the bank.
I think that's a great question to have about sterile water.
We're not having a ton of questions on sterile water. It feels like we should have at least one.
I think that's a really good one because it's important to know, it's going to last 60 to 90 minutes or whatever to be able to tell clients
that. Exactly.
Does it need to be a mandatory then?
No, I think a 2 is fine.
Everybody good with a 2 then on a roll-in question?
Yes.
Because we haven't gotten to dosage yet, and that's where we might consider making it mandatory.
Okay, so for the row D? No?
No.
Nope. And a no on the Dermabond.
Okay.
Looks like we have a tie on the anesthetics.
We did.
This is something I don't think most people are going to know or care about. What they know is how often they need to dose it not how long it lasts or when its peak effect is. And that's why I gave all three of these threes. It doesn't mean I don't think these things are important, but that I think this particular question on these seems less important. It looks like Greg was kind of on the same page I was. So I'm interested to see if we should make them twos and what your thinking is on it. Catherine,
I'm the nose on that one.
I'm also no on that one. I had two sets of numbers that Cerinthia had. We had original ones that her and I went through together, and then I sent her a second list. So a lot of them are different.
Yeah, I know. And the more you think about it, that's why it took me a long time to get this to her. I worked on it quite a bit, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Just coming up with a system for how to rate this first part, like you said, Catherine, this was really hard to wrap your brain around how it's set up and how to do it. All right. So I think we gave
So that's a no.
All of those are no
Okay.
for this section.
Okay.
And erythromycin to me is also a no.
No.
Like there's a consensus on that. Same thing with the vitamin K and the oxygen.
Everybody good? Okay.
Good.
We're
Okay.
awesome. Side
Okay.
effects. So do you guys know the side effects off the top of your head of oxytocin? Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I gave it a 2.
So they need to be a roll-in?
I mean, I'm okay making it required, but
3 for ergotrate.
ergotrate should be a 3. Yeah.
So
I mean,
2, or you want a mandatory?
Which one?
On the Pitocin and the Methergin for the intramuscular. 2's good?
I think 2s are good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, usually we're less concerned about the side effects in those instances. Like, yeah.
But then there doesn't need to be a separate question because the side effects aren't different by route. So
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
no here, 2 for TXA. Maybe we're just going to 2s across the board. 2 for Methergin and 2 for Cytotec, and then a no question for the other Cytotec.
And I'm okay with no's on all of these as well in terms of side effects they have. Only if the worst side effect is if you give too much and, quickly, and that's unlikely to happen in this setting. It's kind of like with medics. How long are you going to be driving around in that ambulance that you're giving them, that much IV fluid? So these would be NQs, I think.
Everybody agree with that? Okay. No on medical oxygen and no on epinephrine?
So with the medical oxygen, my concern is that, we're learning a lot about how oxygen is actually detrimental for newborns in a resuscitation situation where we used to think there was never side effects from it. And I feel like this is one area where, we do want to use that oxygen carefully in a resuscitation and we want to use it in an appropriate manner. So maybe this should be a question.
I think you're absolutely right. It's been striking to see the turnaround we've had even in treating adults, particularly in cardiac arrest. We're thinking of withholding oxygen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, it's under
Do you
review.
want it a
I think.
mandatory or a roll-in?
I feel like it should be mandatory just because the recommendations have changed so drastically, and it used to be known as just like this benign thing that everyone breathes oxygen, so we can just give oxygen.
Yeah, which is wrong. Everyone breathes nitrogen, actually. It's the majority of what we breathe.
Okay, so we'll put that as a 1. Everybody good?
So,
Okay.
Cerinthia, I'm noticing something. Back up, you skipped over the epinephrine. We need to, everywhere it says anaphylactic treatment by subcutaneous injection, we need to change that subcutaneous to intramuscular, because the latest and greatest for the last few years is IM, not sub-Q epinephrine. Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of changing throughout the document, I think, for that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, so just keep an eye out. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. We talked about this. I sent you an email about this, and Sammy was going to look at the rules to update that, although I haven't heard from her about it yet. But it's pretty everywhere you look. And I've been researching this lately, so it's really top of my mind.
Okay, so in the rules, it still is subcutaneous though, correct?
Yes, and that has got to change because that is not the recommendation of anybody for use of epinephrine for anaphylaxis treatment. That's what we talked about. And so
Yes.
Sammy was going to look at the rules and see what had to be changed in the rules.
Has,
So this will go out after hopefully that change happens or simultaneous with it. I don't want to have anybody learning that they should be doing sub-Q
Right.
epinephrine, because they should not be doing sub-Q epinephrine. And in fact, EpiPens have not been sub-Q forever. Back in the ancient days, they were originally sub-Q needles, little tiny needles. And now if you ever take one apart after you've used it, which you should never do because that would be wrong, but the needle is an IM size needle in there. So everybody
are-
from the emergency room docs to the whoever the national paramedic thing is, emergency medicine, everybody is like, it has to be IM because it's more effective more quickly. So we'll need to go through and highlight those. Cynthia, you're muted. You're still muted, Cynthia.
I'm gonna have to come back because it's the same. One more time. Now, can you
What?
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, so Holly, yes, you are correct in regards to when the rules open up for the competencies and the skills and the written. At that point, we can point that out. However, based on what I'm hearing you say, this should really be something that happens now within the rules.
Yeah, as soon as possible. I was waiting to hear from
Sammy.
thank you. I had her face in my mind. I could totally see her.
So after this meeting, I will go and talk to her again to have her reach out to you. Okay, Holly?
Mhm. It's not often that the route of administration changes with these drugs, so that's why I didn't pitch a total fit at the time about putting the route of administration in the rules, which is a couple people really advocated for that strongly back in the day. But this is a case of where it did change. And so we do need to reflect that.
Okay, and so we'll also go through the competencies, the standardized competencies,
Yeah.
and make the changes. And then if it's anywhere else in the skills exam, or we'll just make sure we get these changes corrected on all of the documents that we're working on.
I assume this is something you are super familiar with, Greg. Am I wrong?
Very.
Very wrong or very true?
Very true. But you're right. It's simple enough. Looking at the EpiPen, it's a deep IM needle.
Yeah. And back in the day, not only that, they've changed the dosage actually. The EpiPen now has 0.3 instead of 0.25, and the recommendation for an adult now, if you're doing individual dosing, is 0.5 if they're over 110, and 0.3 if they're under 110. So everything about it has changed. Because I just put together the updated Hive pharmaceutical thing for people to use for their LD&D renewal, and it's in there. So I know. I looked and looked. I was like, "What? When did this happen?" Turns out it was like 2018 or 19 or something. Like it's first started in the literature, and I think it's been 2 years since it was adopted by all the powers that be, which they always lag behind. So we really don't want to enshrine the wrong information for another chunk of time. So are we making that, getting back to it there, Cynthia, we never assigned a number to it, to epinephrine.
Oh, I thought we did. No question. My apologies.
No worries. So what should this be for? I think we're on duration of effect. Am I right?
I don't.
Side
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 effects.
effects, sorry, my bad. Epinephrine is a dangerous drug.
I said yes.
Yeah, I gave it a 2, which is a yes, but I could go with a 1. I think a 1 is not wrong.
I
You
think
guys
it's
okay with the 1?
one.
Okay,
Is everybody doing okay? Do we need a snacky break or a pee break or something?
yeah, it's been 2 hours. Let's take, do you want a 10 or a 15? Well, what would you like to have?
10's good enough for me.
Yeah, me too. I'm a fast prepper.
Okay, perfect. We will do 10. We will see you at 12:10.
10.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, see you all soon.
All right, so we are still on side effects for lidocaine. 2.
Well, lidocaine is the one that you can kill her by causing liver failure if you use too much. That would be more of a not contraindication, but we have another name for that, I think, later on, but just putting it out there. Whereas you could probably mainline procaine and you'd be all right.
So 1 on lidocaine. Everybody good with 1?
I could go with a 2, but I wouldn't go with a no. Thoughts, feelings, expression?
Is the next section adverse effects? Is that what you mean? Like, is that what you?
Yeah, it depends on, I'm not sure that it's not a side effect exactly. It's toxicity.
It's untoward effect.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, I think like one question between the two headings is probably appropriate.
So let's call it a 2 here.
A 2? Okay,
sure.
okay.
And
And for
you guys don't
propane as
carry
well?
You guys don't carry lidocaine with epinephrine, right? Just lidocaine?
Yeah, we don't use lidocaine with epinephrine.
Okay.
It's really contraindicated in the area of the body that we're sewing. So we don't have that on our approved formulary.
Perfect.
The tissue ischemia that it creates is too contraindicated.
Sterile water papules?
3, 0.
Oh,
Something went wrong.
it was my last copy. Okay. Row D?
I would say a 3.
I'm okay with that.
Dermabond, no.
Wouldn't
Yep.
recommend swallowing it.
Well, nope, they don't. Okay, so for the group B,
I mean, I think this is important because the reason why we carry epinephrine is almost primarily for penicillin. So, I mean,
so you want a mandatory or a 2?
I would say 1 on the penicillin personally, but I don't know how other people feel.
No
So
comment,
next
we'll go
we
for a
have
1.
not side effects. We still have indications and contraindications. And then we have adverse reactions. And maybe that belongs under adverse reactions more than under side effects. Because an
Yeah.
allergic reaction isn't actually a side effect. And it's also not an overdosage. It's what you expect to happen from it. So a side effect for this would be redness at the injection site.
Okay, so no here, but yes later.
Later
Okay.
on.
No on all of these?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would say no for erythromycin.
Yeah.
Mhm. Bunch of no's.
Yeah. All
bunch
knows.
of,
Yep.
okay. Now we are into indications and contraindications.
So again, I gave all of these threes trying to think about how this would work on a test for midwives. Like inherent in the anti-hemorrhagic for use by intramuscular injection is the idea that you're using it for that. So you use it for hemorrhage control, you use it for, like, so that's why I gave all this a 3 in terms of for the test. But I'm really, if people think some of these, we need to make it really clear. Like a question is, what do you use oxytocin for? It might be particularly helpful with things like Cytotec, where people might think you can use it for induction just a little bit, whereas that's outside of our formulary to use it for that reason.
So no on the ergo, but we're gonna put, do you want no on these 2 as well? Or do you want 2s?
I was thinking it was important to have a question about the contraindications of Methergen with high blood pressure.
Okay, so maybe that's a
Important.
1.
Okay. Pitocin?
1 or a 2.
Yeah, I'd probably say a 2.
Okay. For intravenous on this, a 2 as well, or?
Yeah. I mean, the difference between IM injection and putting it in the IV bag, there are different indications for it. So that could be a question.
And TXA?
Maybe a 1 or a 2.
I think
That was a
1
hard
again.
one because I don't have any idea what those might be, the contraindications anyway.
Okay,
It's
so
a
Catherine, you said a
coagulant.
1. Oops.
I think Greg said a 1, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to
Indication.
use it on anybody who's having coagulopathy problems, so high platelets or that's on, there are contraindications for it for sure. Now,
Okay.
whether you're going to pay any attention to that, if she's hemorrhaging to death right in front of your eyes, you probably aren't. Some of these drugs have contraindications, like she has diabetes, but because it can upset her blood sugar. But if you're at home and she's hemorrhaging, that's the least of your problems, right? You can, so.
No's on both of these?
Well, they're kind of covered above, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And
for the
no on this one as
rectal
well?
side, yeah.
Okay. No on these?
Correct.
I think so.
Okay. No on this one? And no on that one.
Wait a minute, epinephrine is a
Oops.
different kettle of fish always.
Okay, there
And
we
this
go.
is another place where that subcutaneous needs to be changed to IM. I know you're going to go through and look for them, but I figure while we see them now, just the subcutaneous part. Contraindications and indications. It's the indications part on this one that I think might stand a 1. People hesitate to use it when maybe you're being encouraged to use it a little more quickly in the field than used to be. Used to be only if you have the beginning of airway collapse, and now some places are saying to use it even if it's in question, like a big beginning of swelling, or even in some cases with rash or other things. So might be good to cover that.
Good with a 1 then?
I'd say a 2.
Oh, a 2?
But I could go with a 1. Thoughts?
I think it is important enough to address with a 1.
Okay.
Okay.
You have power, Greg, because of your experience with epinephrine.
And the lanyard.
And the lanyard. It's the you're right, Des. It's the lanyard. I'm being intimidated by the lanyard.
Poor Greg. Boy, he's getting a hard time with that lanyard today.
It's his power lanyard, man.
I
What do
think
you
it looked
mean?
good.
It does. Okay, lidocaine.
Again, this is not adverse reactions. This is when you should not use it. Oops.
Sorry.
I mean, other than the client has an allergic reaction to it, I can't really think of many. So
Yeah, and that's true for any drug at all ever.
yeah. So probably no question.
Okay. Cocaine?
Same thing, same thing.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Rodi?
What do we think about RH in terms of indications and contraindications? This is where a question about should you give it to her if she's Rh negative might be appropriate.
Right, there could be a question about indications only for sterile
Right.
water or ROD, but not contra.
So as a 2 or a 1?
RD, I would say, is a 2, and I'm okay with sterile water as a no, but it could be a 2 also. Let's leave it as a no.
Like, a no?
Yeah.
Okay. No on the Dermabond. And then what about the group Bs?
So indications and contraindications. Here's my question on that. Do we want to ask them that whole, if she's allergic to penicillin and ampicillin, what is the, what do you do next? What do you do next?
Yeah.
Do we want to ask them that off the top of their head? I don't know about you, but I always check the CBC, the protocol, which is now no longer the CBC protocol, but I always look at what's now the ACOG protocol to see if anything's changed. And
Yeah.
if I had somebody who came back negative for penicillin, I wouldn't off the top of my head remember whether it was cefazolin or clindamycin, or there's actually a 5th one, which isn't in our formulary, which we probably should add to our formulary, Cerinthia, because it is in the protocol now as the backup, depending on susceptibility of the bacteria to the antibiotic and allergic status, antibody status. So, do we want to ask those kinds of questions? Like, to me, those are the indication questions you would ask. When would you use cefazolin? Not because she's GBS positive, but because she's GBS positive and she's sensitive to penicillin, ampicillin, and cefalozolin is the backup, unless she's also allergic, unless it's not, susceptible to cefazolin, and then you go to the clindamycin, blah, blah, blah. So how much of that do you want to ask?
I don't think it's necessary.
I feel like maybe the top 2 choices or something could be. I don't have a strong feeling about it either way.
So maybe make penicillin be a 2 and the others be no's.
Yeah.
Like, what is the preferred antibiotic for use for GBS positive
Sure.
clients? Something like that.
Yeah, I feel like even just a question that is like, if penicillin is not indicated, what other options, what other antibiotics could be used? It's just like a one question that covers all 3,
Does your format, Cerinthia, allow for multiple positive answers, correct answers in one question, or is it a single correct answer in the way your algorithm does this?
Well, generally we write it for a single correct answer, but it's an option that we could look at. Generally, we don't write them like that, just one correct answer.
That's what I thought. And it's all multiple choice too, you guys. And no true false. So that's a factor too.
Okay.
Okay, so
I don't think ampicillin needs to be a 2, does it?
Well, it is. I mean, it doesn't need to be. We can just have penicillin be the answer to that question. But if we make it a multiple question, the way it'll probably be is, what is the preferred? And the answer is penicillin, but ampicillin is also totally not a backup drug. It's just that they're related. But you could, usually if you're allergic to penicillin, you're going to be related to ampicillin and vice versa.
And
So
that's why cefazolin would be the pick. So.
Yeah, unless it's not susceptible to that, and of course, as you go down this list, they become less effective as well. I think clindamycin is like 40% effective against GBS. Big whoop,
So do you want it as no question or a 2 on the ampicillin?
let's leave it as a no, and then because I'll be working on it and everybody will be reviewing it, we can look at the question that's generated and go, that isn't quite right.
Okay.
If it comes to that. Does that work for people?
Mhm.
Okay, no objection. The eye prophylaxis,
Indications and contraindications.
I feel like this is a yes.
2
Right?
or 1?
It's I kind of want to say 1 because it's almost the only question that's, relevant to this drug. It's like
Well,
what's the indication for it? Maybe 1.
Did we include it in pharmacological action as a 2? I know we didn't include it for onset, peak, duration, or side effects.
I feel
Right.
like it's been a
Right.
no. But
Action and indication are basically the same, I guess. Is that what you're saying, Holly?
Yeah, if we've included it under action, indications are kind of, I mean, they're so related. But we could give it a 2 or a 1. And then just see if it,
Yeah, I don't feel strongly about it. It just seems like the only really relevant question for this drug,
2,
It seems fine.
okay. I'm afraid to even say that now, Holly, because I can't remember.
Mephitin.
Mephitin.
Let's see, what did I put before?
Indications and contraindications. Do we want a question on this, about that? And about the phytonadione?
I'm thinking no.
I think no. We are
No.
action. I think
No and no.
Okay.
Medical oxygen?
No.
Okay, I'm okay with that too, obviously.
Okay. First reactions. Here we go.
Yeah, this is where it begins to become a little more real. So this is where the methogen is definitely important to ask because of the adverse reactions. If you do have those pre-existing conditions, you can become pretty dead. Oxytocin has the adverse reaction that you cannot use it with epinephrine safely.
So that's a 1 as well.
Yeah,
Just
it seems
putting it
like
out there, not
no.
giving it a number, just saying it's a thing.
not use it.
Yeah. So I'm not saying if she's dying from anaphylaxis, you shouldn't give her the epi. You definitely should, but it does dramatically increase the risk of cerebrovascular events like stroke and other non-optimal things. It's the interaction between the two for some reason.
I didn't know that, so maybe that's something that, should be.
It was taught at birthing. We're just saying.
There's a lot of things that
It was a long time ago, though, but we did teach it. It's always been true. It's a weird thing. It's a particular thing,
So keeping these at 1s, all 3 of them, or no on the.
I think again, ergotrate, because we can't get it, is a 3, but it is even more of a problem with hypertension than methogen is. Like it is, especially if you're getting the using ergotrate, which is the brand name. It is really super associated. It's a vasoconstrictor, a major vasoconstrictor, and it also has psychedelic, psychoactive potential issues. So methogen is related to it. It's just it's based on ergo. It's just has been synthetically changed, so it's less likely to cause the hypertension issues. But because we don't actually use it, I hate to waste a question on the test about it.
Seems fine to know.
And so are we going with 1s on the first 2, or did you decide a 2?
The oxytocin and the methylorganovine?
Yeah.
1s or 2s, you guys?
I'm up for 1s on those. I think it's important enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm leaning towards 1.
Okay,
And then
for-
TXA is, I would say, is a 1, given the discussion. And then the synthetic oxytocin, we kind of already covered it.
Yeah, so probably a no.
Yeah, in this particular administration.
okay,
And then the same thing all the way down, because meso and methogen have already, no, meso hasn't been talked about, but methogen would be a no. And meso would be probably a 2, because it's less of a thing.
Then
The
I
other
didn't hear
thing,
that, Catherine.
a no for the next line of miso.
we say anti-hemorrhagic for oral administration for meso, for Cytotec, but actually when you administer it, you're not supposed to swallow it down like a vitamin tablet. You're supposed to use it more like a homeopathic, and it's really buccally administered. Do you think we need to change that in the rules, you guys, since we're going to be changing the sub-Q to IM? Or do you think oral is sufficient to communicate?
I mean, I think it's important to differentiate between that. I mean, if they just swallow it, they're going to have crazy contractions, and you know, it really does need to be that, you know, that sublingual, like that slower
absorption, as opposed to methogen, which you can just swallow right down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would call it buccal in the rules if you can change it.
And then we'll change it here. So buccal is spelled B-U-C-C-A-L, and we can talk later and I can explain it a little more, because I can see that the look on your face is not good.
It was okay.
Not good. Not good.
That
I've known
was
you a
my
long time,
thinking. That was
Cynthia,
my
30
thinking,
years.
yeah. You want me to add a new section for anti-hemorrhagic for buccal administration? Is that what you're?
And the only thing that goes in it is going to be that Cytotec, that meso, but it's going to be in all the previous sections as well. So it's going to go all the way through.
Okay.
And I do feel like this is important to know, just because, like, you know, if we talk about it being oral all the time, everyone thinks, oh, oral, they're going to swallow it. And I mean, I just had a mama have a hemorrhage and gave her Cytotec buccally, and she hadn't finished it. Like, had been like 10 minutes, and she took a bunch of, like, drank a bunch of water and like swigged the rest down. And oh my gosh, the difference between what was happening before she did that and what was happening after was huge. And she couldn't hold her baby for an hour and a half. She was contracting so bad, you know.
And I've seen that happen with rectal and with buccal. Some people are super sensitive to it. But the thing about those super hard contractions is they're not necessarily being very helpful.
Yeah.
Depending on where the bleeding is. So
Now, will this misoprosa will come out of there?
Yeah.
Is that?
yeah,
And
that's
that will
where
be,
meso goes.
and that will be through everything throughout.
Yes.
And then what did you want to sign this one for?
Adverse reactions.
Yeah, one or
two.
two. And then on all of the other sections in regards to onset peak, how do you want me to address that?
Exactly the same. This same wording, you're going to take it out of oral administration and create the new category for each of the things.
No, what I'm talking about is,
and in the competencies themselves.
so my question is in regards to number assignment for questions, how did you want me to handle that? In those different areas, do you want me to give them all 2s, or do you want me
No,
to?
the numbering stays the same. It's just the wording around where but the numbers we've assigned them will all stay the same. It doesn't change it. We're just clarifying for people that when instead of saying oral, which people interpret that to mean a variety of things, we specifically mean buccal or sublingual is also okay. Buccal is in the cheek and sublingual is under the tongue, and either of those is acceptable.
Gotcha. I get what you're saying about. Okay.
I can look with you and go through and highlight all the places and try to catch them rather than us worrying about it now.
No, I totally get that. I'm totally good with, I just didn't know the previous number of assignments, yes, will stay the same. That's, sorry,
Gotcha.
had to connect there for a second.
You're
Okay,
good.
lactate ringers and solutions.
Are we still on adverse reactions?
We're still on adverse reactions.
So a no on all of these.
Yep.
Oops. My form's being a little fussy. Hang on just a second.
I see that. It's being kind of a little pill. I wonder if it's sublingual or buccal pill. That's a kind of joke that your average person does not actually understand. So. Like, what?
Yeah, I feel like that oral versus buccal versus sublingual is, you know, we all know, but if you were to like actually look at the rules, it would not be clear.
That's right.
And we just know from like learning hands-on, and that's probably not the safest way to have it written.
Yeah. Making assumptions that people agree with what you know.
Yeah.
And you don't know that you're all speaking the same language is a mistake. So.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
So then this is the next one is the medical oxygen that we were talking about making be a 1. The adverse effects of medical oxygen for resuscitation.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, and then anaphylactic treatment with epi, adverse reactions. I you know, 2 or maybe a 3. I mean, there are adverse reactions, but if you need to give it, you need to give it, and then you need to transport. So I'm not sure how.
Yeah, I think 3.
3.
Yeah.
You okay with that, Des? 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving along. So are we going to end at 1 no matter where we are? Because we are far from done.
Well, I didn't know we were ending at 1, but we can end at 1.
No, I thought I saw the invitation was from 10 to 1. Maybe I misread.
Generally, I do 4-hour meetings. 10
Okay,
to 2.
great. Great.
But if somebody needs to go at 1, and I know Desi has, but if we don't get through it, we got to set up another meeting pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I've got to go 1.
You got to
You've
go at 1.
And it sounds like
Yes.
Desi has to go at 1 because she's got a sickie.
Why don't we pick another date?
Real quick. Let's wait for Catherine to get back from wherever she
Yeah.
is.
We'll get our schedule up and running. How quickly do you want me to set this?
I'd like to get it done sooner rather than later, but
Pretty
my
soon.
availability is pretty bad for the next 2 weeks.
Do you guys like Thursdays?
Well, it's not my favorite day of the week. That's Saturday, but I like Thursdays okay. The problem is I don't have a Thursday really available until June 1st, although I might be able to do something on May 18th.
That's a long way away. What do you have sooner? Ollie?
Not a Thursday.
May 18th is only 2 weeks away.
It's 2
Well,
and a
I
half.
guess.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Desi?
Sorry. May 18th is only 3 weeks away.
Are we
wanting something sooner?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I have 0 days next week available. I have only Friday available the week after that.
What day was that?
Although I'm a big liar. I could potentially do like 11 to 2 on the 8th, maybe 10:30 to 2 on the 8th, but I have a 9 o'clock meeting that's an hour and a half.
So you could do 10:30 to 2 on Thursday the 8th.
On Monday the 8th.
Or Monday the 8th?
Yeah, Thursdays, I'm teaching from 9:30 to 4, several Thursdays in a row. So,
Desi and Greg, do you have Monday the 8th available?
I do, yeah.
I do after 10 o'clock on and wide open.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so
So
let's,
we do 10:30 to 2. I have a 2 o'clock meeting and I have a meeting until 10:30. So,
the rest of this, once we get past 1.4, is going to fly by. It's
I
just
think
getting
so.
past 1.4.
Yeah, but we're only on adverse reactions and we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 topics for each of these drugs. Although I think some of those will go fast. I think they're going to be a lot of 3s. But
So our next meeting potentially will not take 4 hours or 3.5 hours. Our main goal will be to get through this list.
mhm.
Catherine, do you have Monday, May 8th available? At
From
10:30
10:30
a.m.?
to 2. From 10:30 to 2. I think you're muted,
You're on
Catherine.
mute.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about for an extra meeting.
Yeah, we got to get through the list. And I honestly don't think it'll take 2.5 hours. I'm hoping, or 3.5 hours.
Huh.
Did you
I
s-
guess, yeah.
It's
We will
because Desi and Greg have to leave at 1.
Oh, okay.
And so we won't have a quorum, so we'll be done.
Okay, so we will add to the calendar for May 8th at 10:30, and we'll shoot it out to 2. But if we get done sooner, which as soon as we can get through section 1.4, the rest of them will be, I think, pretty simple based on all of your answers and how quickly. So anyway, I don't think it'll take until 2 p.m. on that date, but we'll get through the rest of this list.
Awesome.
Okay,
I say we
perfect.
work for another 15 minutes and get as far as we can today.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are on adverse reactions for the lidocaine.
This is the one where you can kill people. So if you give too much because their livers fail and really quickly. So to me, it's a 1.
Okay, procaine.
Probably no. And still water, no
No.
adverse reactions.
Okay, Rodi.
It'd be really hard to do too much of that. Let's see, I would say no.
And Cerinthia, that's because it comes pre-dosed in its own syringe.
Okay. And no for Dermabond.
Overall, yeah, Dermabond, no.
Okay, and the penicillin.
Adverse effects.
Is this where we decided to say yes on the penicillin?
I think it was maybe.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then a bunch of no's. Adverse effects from eye prophylaxis?
No.
Rise to the level of needing a question, so no. Mephitin and phytonadione and those guys?
I mean, I'd lean towards no.
Yeah. Keep it going. You're muted, Cerinthia. Oh, wow, we're very green.
Holly, can you hear?
Barely. You need to do something more. Your computer really kind of hates you today, Cerinthia.
That's 100%.
Now I can't hear you at all.
How about now?
Not really. It's very, very, very faint.
How about now?
Nope.
How about now?
Same.
How about now?
Same. What about now?
Now we can't hear you at all.
100% volume.
There you go. That's better.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Now, unfortunately, this section was missed in your packet with the incompatibilities. And so this is something brand new that nobody was responded to.
So I
Okay.
think I gave all of these threes, and my thinking was we're probably not going to be mixing and matching a lot of these categories. And some of them we deliberately start with, the PIT, and then we go to the methogen, and then we go to the cytotech or whatever. And so to me, these weren't worth asking questions about given the limitations of what we have, but I am open to people arguing with me about that. Catherine agrees with me. I got a thumbs up.
Okay?
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Greg?
TXA and Pitocin.
Incompatibility with TXA is not the issue.
So a no.
The
It's
only
not?
one that there's an actual incompatibility potentially is the oxytocin and the epinephrine. And in that event, if you've already given the PIT because she's hemorrhaging and she has an anaphylactic reaction, you're just in a mess and you need to call Greg and his paramedics to come and take you to the hospital because they got to sort this mess out. But
Greg, I heard you say something different
Yes.
about the TXA.
Yeah, is there any considerations of how we mix the TXA, if it's, lactated drinkers or sugar?
it has to be NS.
Okay.
Is what I've always read and heard. Would that fall in?
That's
So
more.
incompatibilities would be mixing it with the wrong thing. So maybe make that be a 2 for TXA.
Right.
Catherine, I didn't
Have
hear
you ever heard of using it as an injection, Greg?
Yeah, you can. We do bolus. What?
Do you
Doses.
dilute it?
We can, but we do give it as a bolus.
So just a straight TXA and you push it
No,
really
very-
slowly, like a mil at a time or something?
Over 30 seconds.
Over 30 seconds. Wow. The people I talked to were doing it over 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
Wow. But you're on your way to the hospital, so.
No, this isn't this is battlefield use of TXA.
Interestingly, there's only one study that looks at all at the effectiveness of TXA for postpartum hemorrhage. And it was really not very effective, actually. So that was interesting to me. In other settings, for other things, it's great. It does seem to work. But
I was just gonna say, to me, this section is about like interactions with other drugs, not like how do you prepare this drug. Like we're not talking
point.
about preparing penicillin.
yeah.
Good point.
So maybe
So-
so we could still keep the 2 potentially.
and Pitocin at 2 as well, I heard someone say.
Well, this is for IV administration. I'm not worried about incompatibilities for PIT in a IV. There isn't,
So
you can
no
use
question.
you can use anything except maybe spit. That might not be good, but
Okay, so no question on Pitocin and a 2 on TXA. And then we'll go to Methergen.
no.
No,
Lots of no's.
no. Lactate ringer solutions, no.
Oxygen
No.
is a no.
And epinephrine, okay.
So hold on. That's the one where we might want to make it a 2,
Okay,
just because it interacts with the oxytocin.
okay. All good? Okay, moving on.
I think all of these are pretty much 3s or no's. What say ye?
Yeah, I can't think of any other adverse reactions between them.
I would say no.
Oops.
You mean you're not super worried about that eye ointment causing an adverse reaction with the vitamin K? Or we live in such a very relatively safe pharmaceutical world.
Mhm.
that about us.
Okay, now typical unit packaging.
So this is one where I also gave it pretty much a whole bunch of no's because for a
Yeah,
test.
Yeah, and it could be changed.
Yeah, and often it's available in more than one type of packaging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say no.
Not important.
No to all of them. Keep on going with the no's on the packaging.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's important for them to learn about it when they're learning. I think it's good as a competency, but again, limited number of test questions. So.
Okay. Dosage guidelines.
This was an essential section to me. Other people might disagree, but just because back in the day where you only had single dose vials of PIT, it was easy. But now you have dose vials of PIT, and it makes it more challenging. You want to give the right amount.
Do we want the ergonovine on there?
Ergonovine. We could take that off, actually. That could be a no. Thank you, Des. Good catch. But I thought all of the anti-hemorrhagics were ones. And then for the, because the dosing, well, and the methogen is the same. It's 0.2 oral and 0.2, suspension. But when you start getting down to the IV fluids, I made that a 2. The oral administration, I made it 2, like open.
Everybody good with that?
For
It's good.
methogen and Cytotec oral,
Yeah.
is it a 2 because we have it elsewhere?
Yeah, because we have it as a 1 up above under the IM injection.
I think the Cytotec oral should be a 1 and rectal should be a 2. Or, I mean, that's the same dose for either, so I don't know.
Okay, that sounds good. And then a 2 for the rectal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lactated ringers could even be a no.
Yeah.
Everybody
This
good
is
with the no?
This is treatment of shock IV fluids, resuscitation IV fluids. So.
Yeah.
Well, medical oxygen is all about how many liters per minute. And some people think you should just throw the canister open. And those of us who worked in rural settings know that's a good way to go through your oxygen faster than you need to. And I think now the recommendation is a max is like 5 to 6. Am I right about that, Greg?
6 liters by nasal cannula is the max, and that's a bunch.
Yeah, that's a bunch. So I would give this a. We don't have a whole lot of medical oxygen questions, actually. We have the one about adverse effects. I could go with a 1 or a 2 on this. When I did the original thing, I thought it was a 2. But
Wayne?
what do you guys think?
I feel like we should have at least one question about it, and this feels like an appropriate place, but I'm not sure if we already have questions elsewhere.
We only have the one on toxicity.
Okay.
And this is for resuscitation, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's also something that, like, when we do NRP, which we do fairly regularly, it's generally a something that we're learning there. So maybe it's less necessary here. Maybe a 2, but I don't have a strong feeling.
Everybody good with it 2 then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Epinephrine, to me, we have all yeses and it's a 1. It's a must-have.
Yeah.
It's too killy.
Okay.
Desi and Catherine were both my students years ago, and so they know my little cute Hollyisms that I don't even pay any attention to until I look at their faces and I'm like, oh, whoops.
That's awesome. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, lidocaine dosage guidelines.
lidocaine has a maximum, so that could be a 1 or a 2 for sure.
I'd say a
Propane.
1.
A 1.
Yeah.
Procaine is, you can spray that puppy on there all you want and it's not going to do anything. And
Yeah.
No question for that one.
so that's a no. And then sterile water papules, I think it's a 2. How much you administer at each little papule makes a good 2 question. Rodi is available. Not everybody uses the pre-syringed Rogam, just FYI, because I was thinking about what I said a minute ago. So it might not be a bad idea to include a question on that.
And it does come in 2 different dosages. It comes in the 50 and the 300. So
the 300, yeah.
Do you
I
want
think
that?
that
So a 1 or a 2, guys?
1.
Okay. Tissue adhesive, 3.
Okay. Your penicillins?
I kind of see that as at least a 2 and maybe a 1 because it's the dosage and frequency as part of that. So
I would say a 1 for penicillin and maybe a 2 for the rest.
okay.
Okay, prophylaxis.
It's a 2 to 3 centimeter ribbon in each like to me it's at best a 2, maybe.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Strong
Catherine?
feeling. Catherine?
Either way.
Greg, you're the swing vote.
No higher than a 2.
No higher than a 2. So I'm hearing some 3s there.
It doesn't seem very important, so I think it needs to go at the 3 level. That's
Seems fine.
Well, doing it is important, but the dosage is not, it depends on how big their little eye is and how well you can aim and how much they're fighting you. And sometimes you use a half a tube just to get a little tiny bit in that baby because they're just fighting you every step of the way. So yeah, Mephiton, I think dosing is at least a 2 there. And this is the oral pill form.
Yes, that we're going to change. Right?
We need to add oral administration because we have IM injection for the phytonadione, but the Mephiton is different.
Yes, we're going
And
to, just like all the other areas.
yeah.
Okay.
And then for the injectable, I think that's a 1 to me, because if you give the wrong thing the wrong way, you can kill the baby if you accidentally give it IV, and if you give too much, you can cause a coagulation catastrophe. So you're lucky if you get them a fight and down them at all. So medical oxygen.
No? Or is that?
Seems like a question about when would it be appropriate to use oxygen in resuscitation, but not dosage guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay,
no.
no question. Okay. Here's my, did you guys want to look at the rules for TXA in our last, well, we only have a minute. Greg's got to leave. Did you want, or we could look at that next week? The rules for the TXA, how do you want to handle that now?
Can you send a copy to us ahead of time?
Yes.
So we can look at it, so that way the conversation will be brief next time.
Absolutely. Yep. I will
Okay,
make
I like
sure
that.
that we send those to you. And then,
And we already have this document, but we don't have the updated up to this point, unless the document you sent us will automatically update. And I would love to see the document to this point so I can review it and just make sure that upon calm reflection, I don't go, what were we thinking? So
absolutely. I will make sure that you get this document by the beginning of next week at the latest.
okay.
Are you going to
So
tell Colleen and Julia about the May 8th meeting so that hopefully one of them can come in case one of us is at a birth or something?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So everybody will get that. They'll get the updated dates. They'll get the updated schedule with that additional date, and they'll get this document, and they'll get the you guys will get the rules. And I don't think there's anything else.
Can you include the deadline to review the LD&D skills exam, which we decided was June 2nd, in that communication as well?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. So I get to see all of you again on May 8th, because you're now my good peeps.
Well, thank you all for all of the work that you do. We could not do this without you, and thank you for your contributions, and I appreciate it. And working with all of you is great. So thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Good
Hope
day,
your little
everybody.
one is doing okay, Des.
Oh, yeah. It's nothing new. This is, par for the course.
Par for the course.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Thank you. I'll be in touch. Have a
Bye.
great day. Okay, bye-bye.
Did you call the meeting adjourned, Cynthia?
Oh, goodness, no, I didn't. I gotta find that script. At this
Just
time, the
saying.
Board of Direct Entry Midwifery Legend Drugs and Devices Continuing Education Committee is adjourned at 1:01 p.m. All right.
Well
Yay.
done.